If it's a negative thing, it's gonna be hopefully emotionally charged. So, no, wait 1 second, let's. Have you made your assumptions?
Yes.
Okay, have you made your assumptions? Cite your observation, make your assumptions because you assume all the time. It's only human to assume. Then confront. Yeah, let's start. So, face to face, eye contact. So decide who's going first. What have you observed? Well, it's something that you've observed. Yeah, I can do it in the positive, it's not a problem. Try something else. Okay, you can confront now. Are we ready? Are we ready? Don't start. Have you started confronting? Pause for me. Pause. Stick a pin, everyone. Knock, knock. Stay with me. Old strain. I'm gonna have you guys go first. You believe?
So it will be
No. I want you to declare your observation in earshot of everyone.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
And I want you to talk in the first person.
Okay.
We are working on teaching the effective. You have to have difficult conversations and speak directly to the person. Okay. I have noticed that it's going to have a particular effect on Kay because she's anticipating something about her that someone is about to reveal. So we are? So you charge emotion. Good? So, don't adjust too much.
I'm softening the words. I'm share it. All right, so I noticed.
Eye contact. Say your name.
Yes. I noticed that you manage in a very non-autocratic way.
I can't hear.
I manage in a very non-autocratic.
She says I must speak to her.
Right, speak to her directly.
But loudly,
Yeah.
within earshot.
Eavesdrop.
You almost never get stern unless it is absolutely necessary.
Stern.
Stern.
Or stern.
Nor do you spoon feed. You guide and sometimes annoy your direct reports with many leading and open-ended questions.
So you've observed that.
Right.
Okay, and have you ever mentioned that to her directly? No. All right, so, but you have your assumptions or convictions as to why, so share those.
I assume that your mother was never ever stern with you. And that you dislike or hate being stern. I also assume that you prefer to empower so that you have less work to do in the long run.
All right, go to the concluding part of it now, Ann. So what have you done already?
So I've shared.
Right.
So confront the colleague. Are you aware of the behavior?
Fine, let's go through the process. So step one, are you aware of the behavior?
I am aware of it.
So the individual is saying, yes, I am aware that I behave this way. Good? Next one.
Were my assumptions accurate?
Not 100. My mother was very stern with me at times, but she believed that she should empower me to make decisions, and I believe in coaching. So I behave that way with my teammates. So it's not a situation where I'm in control of them. they are able to make decisions and be very confident in their decisions when they take their decisions.
So the behavior was
The behavior was
right. So the behavior that she
it's
brought to
correct.
light, right? Again,
It's
you
correct.
say okay,
And the
that's
assumptions were
and
more
the
than
assumptions were thought in the zone.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So all right. So fair game. It has a particular kind of impact, and you can see the sort of Jeanette is looking that way. Because again, again, when you do anything that's emotionally charged, if you find that, well, some people will not even start, and you'll find that in teaching learning situations all the time. So let's do the exchange.
Yes.
Go. Okay.
All right. I have observed that.
Talk to her, call her by name, talk to her directly.
Right. Jeanette, I have observed that you are particularly stern when it comes to following rules. You are, it unnerves you almost when persons break rules. Two specific assumptions. I believe that you are someone who follows the rules, and you believe that everybody else should also follow. Those are the assumptions. Right, those are my assumptions.
All right, so final from your colleague. If she's aware of that
Are
particular.
you aware of this behavior?
Yes, I am aware of this behavior. Yes, I'm aware.
And the assumptions as to why you behave that way, are they accurate?
No, but the assumptions didn't say why I behave that way.
Again, because you believe that everybody should follow the rules.
Oh, okay. Yes. I believe that partly.
The other part.
The other part is that I'm OCD.
Yeah, everybody should follow the rules. The rules are there, therefore you should follow them. Okay, cool.
All right. Okay. One more. Who is it? Who wants to share?
Like seriously?
It is an
I will.
I will.
In the interest of time, we might not be able to have everybody report. So.
I will.
Okay, good. All right. So, eye contact and report. It's not very often that you confront your colleague again. Well, we're talking strategies for the teaching learning process, and you can. There comes a time when you're working with learners where you need to have difficult conversations. And the effective aspect of teaching learning requires that you do that. All right? In your supervisory role, you need to do that at times. Okay? And you might have been observing a particular behavioral pattern and you're making assumptions. But why not? And confront is not in a sort of negative context, right? Why not confront? Again, if you're pursuing a sort of paradigm change. People sort of soften up when you sit down face to face with them to say, you know, I've observed this about you and I'm making some assumptions. Because your assumption might be way off. And if your assumptions are way off, then you're not on course to bring about a real change. Because the assumption that you're guided by, your assumption that why the individual is behaving that way, they are at best inaccurate. So which is why the theory says, check in on the underpinnings. Okay? So go, share. But don't look to the ceiling, maintain eye contact.
Trisha, I've observed that you're a very quiet person. You don't seem to communicate unless it's necessary. My assumptions are it's probably because of your upbringing, you were grown that way, so you were spoken to, or probably you were hurt before, so you're reserved. Alright,
Well, let's talk about, is the observable behavior accurate? Or do you know yourself to be that kind of person?
yeah, I'm generally quite enough.
Michelle, do let her know
And
that.
are you quiet? Are the assumptions accurate?
Depending on the environment,
Uh-huh.
I'm quite like in a setting like this, I tend to be very reserved. If it's a one-to-one with persons that, you know,
Right? What were the assumptions as to why she's always quiet?
Her personal upbringing.
Personal
Or
upbringing.
she has been hurt before, so she's more reserved. Yeah.
Are those assumptions? Well, those are our assumptions. Are the assumptions accurate? So the assumptions are way off. So now you know that your assumptions as to why she behaved a particular way are not accurate. Right? So we're going to check it. Did you do one? You didn't know her, yeah, because you were experiencing this thing in a rather emotional way. I observed that to the point that, well, technically, here I go. Share.
No, but she should do hers for.
She did not do one. She could not get started. I watched her.
Oh.
Yeah.
He observed.
In situations, some people cannot do this activity. I'm telling you that. Yeah, some people just cannot do it. Because some people don't operate in this other emotional sphere. Some people just don't. Go.
But is it because they didn't really know?
E.T.
Right. Pause. Go.
I have observed you sit unobtrusively in staff room.
And you will be making assumptions, and the assumptions are?
My assumption.
Glasses? That's right.
That she does all.
No, talk to her.
Okay. E.T. You do all your work within the work time and space, so you must maximize those hours.
Number one. Number two.
Secondly, you're just overwhelmed by the amount of work that you're required to do.
All right. So go to the concluding part of it.
Am I aware?
Is she aware of this behavioral pattern?
Are you aware of this behavior?
Yes, I am. In part, although I still end up carrying work home.
So she's overwhelmed.
Yeah, sometimes I am overwhelmed, sometimes I'm not. So, yeah.
How many scripture matches? My goodness.
5 million.
All right. Yeah. In the interest of time, we don't want to. So again, you want to do the exchange for the last one again. We might not get through because I know we're in a sort of time sensitive thing.
Okay, Tess, I noticed that you have lunch punctually at midday every day away from your desk, specifically under the tree with a friend. I'm assuming that
Yes.
you have a need to be disciplined about taking care of your health, and therefore you eat on time. I'm also assuming that you think one should enjoy life minutes by minutes.
First one,
Yeah. Old straight one.
no.
First assumption.
First assumption, she's off.
Totally
I'm
off.
just hungry at that time. Have you had breakfast at 6:15 with my husband? I'm very hungry at that time, having gone to the gym. What is the second one?
That you enjoy life minute by
Minute by minute.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know if I do it
Generally.
Generally. And eating with a friend or other persons in an informal environment, I find is a very healthy thing. So that's the health aspect.
Okay. All right. So, anybody else who really wants to get me? We're gonna have to move to something because I know the time is racing away. All right. So, two key things that you will experience is that when the discovery or when the behavior that has been observed is being reported to you, well, initially the anticipation is emotionally charged. So you're wondering why. And it's no different than, that's what the people in supervisor roles, there's no different than, there's some supervisors who, they observe behavior, they want to confront the report, And there are situations in this organization, not this location per se, where people wait a week because they just don't know how to initiate.
Or until the incentive time.
They just don't know how to initiate. Well, incentive time, but I'm just saying that you want to talk to someone who is your report about a behavior that you're concerned about, but you say, I'll do it today, and you left today, so you go home and you say, well, probably I should not, So you are really afraid to get into anything that is a sort of emotion, right? Now, it's the same kind of thing in sort of teaching learning situation, okay? There are times, again, when with learners, if you're operating in the affective, you have to have difficult conversation, okay? So, you have to have a plan in place, and if you find that it was sort of difficult getting this going, and I'll say again that it has been my experience and the research supports. So there are some personality types that just cannot go through this activity. So you do this in workshop with some places and people just don't participate because it's a little bit too emotional. But targeting transformation as a version of change requires you to get a little bit emotional. You have to attend to that. There's no escape because this is the aspect where you're trying to uncover the beliefs, the assumptions, and so on. What you observe is the behavior. Now you're saying, I've observed so and so. It's appropriate for you to make known your assumptions and to give the individual a chance to say, no, your assumptions are not accurate. Now, if you try to move on to step 2 without validating the assumptions, then you realize you're going in the wrong direction. Because you are being guided by assumptions that are flawed. Your assumption of the person's assumption, not spot on. So the way to find out what the person believes and so on, you can't assume people's beliefs and convictions. You cannot assume the underpinning schemas. You have to really engage. Okay? So, and then the person who is, so two ways, the person who is reporting, you're seeing where your observation, you made an observation, but your assumptions, all right, are going to be validated, or they're going to be, the individual will prove to you that no, your assumptions are not valid. And so you say, oh, then you come to the aha moment. Well, tell me what it is then. But by then you get to that point, now you're in dialogue. And then you can share. Now the reason we say you don't attack the behavior, because just think about this. To get this process started, you realize you need dialogue. But imagine if you had attacked my behavior. Then when you've done it, you'd have built up resentment, so there'll be no conversation. I'll just stay silent. Or I'll just tell you whatever, just to get by. Alright? So, we want to move to, so if you get past perspective transformation, then it says you come to, there's a definition of perspective. I hope this computer holds this time.
Press it once.
Press it twice, I'm waiting. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. No, that's for the PTD. So this is the definition of perspective transformation. Becoming critically aware of how and why one's assumptions, beliefs, and so on have come to. When you have undergone a perspective transformation, this is what you're dealing with. So what has now happened? The root causes, the underpinnings have started to modify. And there's a second part. Again, a part of the perspective transformation reality. Making possible a more informed and dependable perspective. Now, the perspective transformation is just a step before the sort of mental reconstruction, if you want to put it that way. Revised meaning structure. When you have a revised meaning structure, then whoops, new behavior. You have a revised meaning structure, new behavior. So can relate that again to the change by exception thing when you're just suppressing the behavior. As soon as the consequences disappear, the behavior will go. The paradigm change, it's a more permanent change that you will realize. Now, we're going to do this one to sort of give a sense as to how someone will sound, how they will come across when they're really going through a transformation. Again, I pulled this from Learning as Transformation. So I need 2 volunteers. We're going to do a little role play. Jeanette had volunteered, but I think she's multitasking in this moment. So Kay, you want to jump in?
Sure.
And we need Calvin, can I ask, because I need a male and a female.
Sure.
Who wants? It's going to be either of you. Who wants to do it? Are you still in the script? So and then the rest of us can follow along. So I need 2 chairs. She's not. He's probably in his office and she walked in. so there you are. Position him and let's go. So you guys can follow along.
Okay, you're on. Will you sit down?
No, man, I think he's standing.
No, he has to stand up to remember the part of the group. So I think he's seated. Eventually. Give one.
I've read it.
Yeah, it's just the 2 of them right now. We're just following along. You get the original, so. Alright, so you walked into his office and go.
Your doorbell and
Yes. You got the script? Yes. So role play, make it real. Go back to grade 4 when you're in drama class. Let's go.
I mean, then I passed from Papa's hands into yours. You arranged everything the way you wanted it.
Volume up.
So I simply took over your taste, or pretended I did. I really don't know. I think it was a little of both. First one, and then the other. Now I look back on it, it's as if I've been living here like a pauper, from hand to mouth. I performed tricks for you, you gave me food and drink. But that was how you wanted it. You and Papa have done me a great wrong. It's your fault that I have done nothing in my life.
Nora, how can you be so unreasonable and ungrateful? Have you been happy here?
No, never. I used to think I was, but I haven't ever been happy.
Not? Not happy?
No, I've just had fun. You have always been very kind to me, but our home has never been anything but a playroom. I've been your doll wife, just as I used to be Papa's doll child. And the children have been my dolls. I used to think it was fun when you came in and played with me, just as they think it's fun when I go in and play games with them. That's all our marriage has been, Torvald.
There might be a little truth in what you say, though you exaggerate and romanticize. But from now on, it will be different. Playtime is over.
Darlene.
Now the time has come for education.
Whose education? Mine or the children's?
Both yours and the children's, my dearest Nora.
Oh, Torvald, you're not the man to educate me into being the right wife for you.
How can you say that?
And what about me? Am I fit to educate the children?
Nora,
Didn't you say yourself a few minutes ago that you dare not leave them in my charge?
in a moment of excitement, surely you don't think I meant it seriously.
Yes, you were perfectly right. I am not fit to educate them. There's something else I must do first. I must educate myself. And you can't help me with that. It's something I must do myself. That's why I'm leaving you.
What did you say?
I must stand on my own feet if I'm to find out the truth about myself and about my life. So I can't go on living here with you any longer.
Nora.
I'm leaving you now. At once. Christine will put me up for the night.
You're out of your mind. You can't do this. I forbid you.
Okay.
It's no use. You trying to forbid me anymore. I shall take with me nothing but what is mine. I don't want anything from you now or ever.
What kind of madness is this?
That's right.
Tomorrow I shall go home. I mean to where I was born. It will be easiest for me to find some kind of job there.
But you are blind. You have no experience of the world.
I must try to get some, Torvald.
But to leave your home, your husband, your children, have you thought of what people will say?
I can't help that. I only know I must do this.
But this is monstrous. Can you neglect your most sacred duties?
And what do you call my most sacred duties?
Do I have to tell you? Your duties toward your husband and your children.
I have another duty which is equally sacred.
You have not. What on earth could that be?
My duty towards myself.
First and foremost, you are a wife and a mother.
I don't believe that
Any longer.
any longer. I believe that I'm first and foremost a human being, like you. Or anyway, that I must try to become one. I know most people think as you do, Torvald, and I know there's something of the sort to be found in books, but I'm no longer prepared to accept what people say and what's written in the books. I must think things out myself and try to find my own answer.
Do you need to ask where your duty lies in your home? Haven't you an infallible guide in such matters? Your religion.
Oh, Torvald, I don't really know what religion means.
What are you saying?
I only know what Pastor Hansen told me when I went to confirmation. He explained that religion meant this and that. When I get away from all this and can think things out on my own, that's one of the questions I want to look into. I want to find out whether what Pastor Hansen said was right, or anyway, whether it's right for me.
But it's unheard of for so young a woman to behave like this. If religion cannot guide you, let me at least appeal to your conscience. I presume you have some moral feelings left. Or perhaps you haven't. Well, answer me.
Oh, Torvald, that isn't an easy question to answer. I simply don't know. I don't know where I am in these matters. I only know that these things mean something quite different to me from what they do to you.
Look at him Oh my God.
Okay, so despite trying to convince her that she could not or should not, and based on what? As you listen to his convictions and his
Beliefs.
and it also is thinking as to how religion should guide her and so on and so forth. You're dealing with a revised mindset, which is going in a totally different direction, to the point where she's saying to you, I don't know what these things mean anymore. That is when you really can be convinced that you're dealing with someone who has a revised meaning structure. And that is when people walk away. There are individuals who want to walk away from situations, but they just cannot because of the emotional entanglement and so on. So, needless example of a study of transformation, again, when you're sort of delving in the effective realm of it. Questions? What do you think about that process? As it relates to transformation, transforming the mindset. What jumped out at you?
Dr. Brown?
Go.
What jumped out at me was the ability, the need to be okay with everything being different.
The need to be okay with everything being different.
Yeah.
Is that something that's sort of like a new normal?
Yes, like a new normal. Like, for example, because we've always done it this way doesn't mean it's the only way.
Right.
We can try something new.
And that is a strategy that I was using to get you to conform.
Yeah.
saying, it's unheard of.
Yeah, but
for-
let us try something.
Good. But again, when with this revised mind, and we're at the last stage, acting in accordance with new tentative perspective. That's what you're getting from a study of transformation. It says tentative because the thing is that you continue to reflect, learn and reflect over time, and the schemas will continue to modify over time, so people will, and then sometimes people even walk away from such a situation, but then they'll come back to it because they are convinced that the new normal that they've taken on is just not, and sometimes it's a matter that, you can't wait. You can't really wait any longer to become comfortable in this new normal. So you return to the difficult situation. Again, you're being driven by your underpinning schemas, abusive relationships and so on. And you might say to people, sometimes, why don't you just leave? But it's easy for you to say, why don't you just leave? And people start to tell you that, well, it's too difficult to start over and so on and so forth. Well, that's a belief also. So you get where we are. So, all right. We put up this one. It says, when you attend to transformational learning, there's a progression. Let me draw closer to this because now you can have a sort of instrumental way of making meaning. And the descriptor says you follow the right steps and rules and you make sure to do each one the right way. There usually is only one right way. You can find yourself right there right now. Some people progress to a more socializing way of making meaning. Not totally independent of authority figures. You will still look externally when you need guidance. So you are not trusting your own judgment to the point where you say, look, I can shape my own reality. And some people are comfortable right now. It's an okay place to be. But you can get to the self-authoring mind, where determine your own independently conceived and desired goals. Who's that is? The big question is for those of us in teaching learning, in the teaching learning situation, where do you want your learners to end up? Do you want them to? Military style?
No.
Do you want them? Now this has a place.
Right, that's what I was asking.
Has a place, right? Socialize. Where do you operate right now? Do you operate in the socializing realm or do you operate in the self-authoring? A question from Stephen Brookfield, the skillful teacher. What do you want to happen to your learners at the end of the teaching learning process? Do you want them to remember everything you said, how it should be done? So like you're building a wall and you have to be there holding it up. And you say, I'm a great builder. Or do you want to be able to walk away from it and it remain standing? Now there's a caution here with even some of my colleagues elsewhere say, well, if you have too many of these people around, you're going to lead to a society, they're going to overthrow government and so on, and that can't work.
Dr. Brown, or as a supervisor, when you end up in that third box,
Right?
when you have people that you supervise,
Yeah.
and they're in that third box.
It's the same thing, which is why I actually invited supervisors to come on in, because what is it? How do you want the people who report to you to operate? Is it that you want them to do what you say should be done, how you say it should be done, or most job ads you see nowadays, they say we want people who can think critically. It did not get done because the supervisor was not here and I don't know what to do. So, where are you? You can ask yourself, where am I in this continuum? Now, some people are comfortable at stage 1. Some people want to progress. Not going to say it's right or wrong to be at any particular level, but you get a sense of it.
What we do are still at instrumental level.
At VTDI, I think we've progressed beyond instrumental. I think we have. I don't think we're at the instrumental level.
The change by exception is not gonna get you to the self-authoring, no, I believe.
Yeah, because change by exception is going to be sort of instrumental
Right.
in terms of what the rules are and what the consequences are. Act this way. Okay? So,
Dr. Brown,
yeah.
as I said earlier, one of the challenges you're going to have at the extreme, the self-authoring note, is that if you, as a supervisor, and Janet mentioned earlier as well about being comfortable with yourself. So you see, if that supervisor is not comfortable with him or herself,
Right.
they're going to have serious challenges over the self-authoring section that you just mentioned there. So I made a point earlier about the need for things like interpersonal skills,
Yeah.
and that sort of
How to
thing.
facilitate the process.
Right.
Yeah. When you get into any sort of when you get into the effective domain of teaching, where you're attending to the more emotional thing, because the domain says values, feelings, and beliefs. And when you're treating with that part and it gets emotional, you can, as a facilitator, you can get caught up emotionally because you're discovering yourself, things about yourself also. The little thing we did just now, where you have to pair up with someone and to share something that you observe, you realize the people at the stage where someone is reported, that individual is also caught up emotionally because some people, and we're not all the same in terms of how we relate in that context.
Yeah.
But some people are able to just say it. They're outspoken. Some people are a little bit reserved. They have to make sure that I put the right word. How am I going to say this? And that's why people postpone difficult conversations.
Sure.
What do I say? How do I start? And some people just never get started. Go.
And I'm saying that there are skills that can be acquired to do that.
Where do we strike the balance? Because in some sense we want our students to have that self-authoring, knowing kind of thing. And
Do you
also-
want that?
No, not totally, but we also want them to socialize as well. Not totally, because you want them to get there eventually, but you don't want this person to become autocratic after a while. I think that
Well,
it's all
autonomous
about-
rather than autocratic.
Yes,
Not
autonomous.
Autonomous.
I'm going to disagree with Francisco because I kind of try to push my students into the self-authoring, but I also, within the space, I also put the responsibilities that come with that, because there are a lot of responsibilities that come with every step. I think the least responsibility on the learner comes in the instrumental, where you're just kind of handing over. But with
Very
socializing, with the socializing, the trust, the development of the trust, the respect, the creation of that kind of atmosphere in the classroom is there, the relationship. And then over here, the respect of the views of others and the diversity. Because I may disagree with you, it's yours, you can justify your position. I will disagree with you and I will have a different position. We don't have to agree on everything. And I think that is very important in terms of to disagree, but yet not to be disrespectful. You know, and that is part of over here.
And in
Dr.
fact,
Brown.
that's a very big thing, to disagree and not be disrespectful.
Yeah.
Because it is something that I think our students have to be taught. It doesn't come naturally.
But and I think that is also true in terms of the supervisor-supervisor relationship.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to weigh as it relates to the supervisor-supervisor relationship as well. I think it is key because sometimes you may get reports who are very well known in terms of probably in their own achievement and academic development. Might place them alongside you as your supervisor. Right. And it's important that you are not threatened, but you are able to manage the talent.
Right.
You understand, to the greater good of the institution.
Right.
So I think that it's a key.
All right, I'll say something. Go for it.
Yeah, one of the benefits I find in helping the students to move over into the self-authoring for the teacher, benefit for the teacher. In my experience, I get to cover more ground theoretically, especially when you're working with theory-based courses. because they have to know, engage with the theory to experience a kind of paradigm. This issue of learning to disagree, they have to disagree about something.
Yeah.
And I find in a classroom space where I get them to move into that space, they're constructing their own views based on theory. I get a class that engages in much more critical thinking about much more theoretical perspectives, because you're having these persons engaging individually and then with each other, sometimes even trying to change each other's perspective. So I get much more theory coming out, and then the ability to apply theory to practical situations. So it works out nicely for me.
And it reinforces the cognitive. Let me just share a strategy. I've done this intervention with some of the instructors, and our instructors at the what do you call it? They're no longer vocational training, TVET institutes, right? So, the one particular situation I remember, there's someone who is a welding instructor. How does it apply in my world? And I say, you know what? If you're teaching someone to weld two pieces of pipe together, this is applicable. And I say, look, typically you're teaching that one, right? These are the steps in welding, da-da-da-da-da-da. But the emphasis is on the psychomotor. How can you treat with that effectively was the big question. And so I said, yes, it can be done. And it can be done again because if you recognize that we really have 3 domains of learning. And if you believe that as an educator, trainer, then you'll apply. So there's a cognitive, the psychomotor, and the effect. For the skill-based, in the skill-based context, they tend to teach primarily in the psychomotor, which is instrumental. Can they operate in this one? Yes. Sure it is. So, follow this strategy. You know that if you instruct learners, if you give learners information about the steps in welding or anything, they have that information at their disposal. If you design a learning activity where learners are supposed to come back to the classroom and talk about how they feel about the 7 steps in the process, automatically you have told them that they need to know the steps.
Yeah.
You want to catch that?
Yes.
If you tell them that they need to come back and talk about how they feel about each step. The needle experiment that I'm actually doing with some instructors at 2 locations. They're teaching the effective this way. Now what will happen in that situation, in that context? The steps 1 to 7, they become subjected to the unconscious learning brain. So we talk about 2 learning brains. Go back to the theory. The theory says you have 2 abilities to learn. You have a conscious learning brain and an unconscious learning brain. And your unconscious ability to learn is more sophisticated than your conscious ability. Everybody catch that?
Yeah, man.
Repeat it.
Your unconscious ability to learn
Yes.
is more sophisticated than your conscious ability.
Okay.
Your unconscious learning ability is rapid, which is why, use the example before, which is why students know the song, the words in the Vibes Cartel song. They pick those up easier than they pick up the difference between diffusion and osmosis. Because one is unconscious learning and one is, you catch it?
Yeah.
So, the way to really and truly turn on the unconscious learner, so the experiential way in the classroom, is to go to the affective.
Yeah.
And what they will be doing, they are preparing now to come back and defend, debate the 7 steps. What they are not watching is that easily they are acquiring the 7.
And
You
they-
subject that to the
And they are
unconscious learning.
enjoying it.
Yes.
They
So
are
before you
enjoying
know it,
Yeah.
they know the 7 steps.
Of course.
Because they have to come to class tomorrow,
Yes.
and they have, I tell instructors, let them form teams.
Yeah.
Let them come back and debate the 7 steps. Let one group be for the 7 steps and one group will be,
Yes.
what do you want them to learn?
The 7 steps.
The 7 steps.
Yeah.
The affective is the most powerful domain of learning.
Yeah.
It is.
Oh yes.
And so if you go to that, automatically, but let's say it supersedes the cognitive and the psychomotor. And what it will do, it's also, I like Jack Mesereau's notion that the affective allows you to check in on the cognitive.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning what? If I instruct you to come to class and defend the 7 steps, I've already told you that you need to know the 7 steps.
Yeah.
So if when you come to class you cannot defend the 7 steps, I will know cognitively there's a deficiency. You see where we are?
Yeah.
So that means in the affective it's saying you need to revert to the cognitive because there's cognitive weaknesses. You're observing. Alright? So do not undermine the affective. It's the most powerful domain. Alright? And we're going to close out in the affective, a simple strategy which I've told we're doing wonderful work with instructors trying some things. I think we believe in these notions, but sometimes we teach them in classrooms to our students, but it's a good thing to go out there and tell some instructors, try this over the semester. I treat it as a research. Let me come in and observe, check in and see how you're doing. And one strategy I gave them was to, one of the key things we've picked up, let me tell you what has led to the strategy. People complain, employers complain that the learners that we're turning out in the organization, you know, skill-wise they're good, but they lack certain abilities or certain competencies. We like to communicate effectively. That's one. So the folks on Ebony Park complain that, well, you know, we can't do anything about it because we have so many students and we only have 2 part-time English language or communication instructors. So I said, but you know, you can use the agronomy class to improve communication. Any class you can do that in. So strategy-wise, I've said, you can require your learners. Every time, I say do it, if I really want to be real radical about it, I say do it every time they have class. I say, do it once a week. Require them to come to class, let them sit in a circle, and any topic that you're teaching, any topic. So let's say you are teaching integrated pest management. I have an agricultural background. Any notion you're teaching, require them. As a requirement for the course, they will have to, week by week, every time we have class, you have to talk for 30 seconds. I have to start at 30 seconds, we can progress to a minute. You're going to articulate for 30 seconds about why integrated pest management is important. Now we're going to do it in a circle, in what we call a circle of voices. So each individual will know that he or she will have to verbalize for 30 seconds and say, eliminate and and all those kinds of things. You cannot do it. They cannot use any of those fillers, right? So imagine, if you require a learner to do that every week for 30 seconds, how many weeks in a month? How long are they at the training institution for? But you know the fascinating thing about it, what the instructors are seeing, the student outside, you see people pairing up. You know what they're preparing for? They're pairing up, even before class, they're verbalizing to each other.
Yeah.
Because they're preparing to go into the classroom and do this thing. 30 seconds will seem like a lifetime if they're not prepared. Now, that's the only way, effectively, you're going to displace the slangs that they use, because they're talking slangs, right? Dog and da-da-da-da-da-da. But that's how they talk in the community. So how do you get over that? While they're in training, subject them to a routine that will require them to
Talk.
use the formal language. And I said, just do it 30 seconds each class, each individual. So you do the circle of voices. I do postgrad students, close out every module. Talk for 3 minutes. You get to do it tomorrow? Talk for 3 minutes about any notion that we're treating within the module. And yes, it becomes a very sort of a, you know, I wish I could skip class today kind of thing. But they get used to it by module 2 or module 3. And people prep for it. And I put them on a timer, so you have to articulate. And take away the and the because I'm putting you into the real world as a trainer, then you have to be able to articulate effectively on your feet. 3 minutes is good, but you can try that. In the works, yeah, I know the time is up. We're done. All right, so try that at work. How much time we have left?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, so we can do that. So 1 second. All right, so teaching in the effective is important. We're going to go in this direction. Just say something. No ah. Let's do that quickly. Starting with, I will start. Ready? We have 2 minutes. If you say or we have to start over. Teaching in the effective or supervising and attending to the effective is important. Why? Because human beings are driven by underpinning beliefs and values, and the effective domain is the way to change those.
Because it's
Teaching in the effective is important. Keep going.
Teaching in the effective is important because it engages critical reflection.
Next. I don't think it's.
Teaching in the effective.
Just say as well as. You don't have to start over the tagline. As well as.
As well as giving them more independence.
It gives them more independence. Next.
And it let them think critically.
It allows them to think critically.
It is the greatest way to effect change.
Next.
Also, it allows them to assess their underpinning values.
Bring those into sharp focus. Go to Tessica and we go forward.
Great citizens for our country.
Okay, values and attitude.
It also engages them fully.
It allows for transformation.
It allows for the transformation to take place.
Additionally, it taps into their prior knowledge.
It taps into their prior knowledge.
As a part of the critical thinking and the transformation paradigm shift.
As well as it's great fun.
Go to the back of the room. Are you guys on board?
It opens up their understanding and, allows them to tap into new knowledge.
Close out with Chandler.
Well, I believe what it does is it allows them to take on the behavior and the attitudes and so on that we need for real life living, therefore enhancing change in their behavior.
Okay.